How would you like them to remember George Mitchell?
I tried my best.
John, you just alluded to people here in Maine having a very long night. Well, nowhere are people going to have a longer night than right here at Central Maine Medical Center. The Fabelmans, directed by Steven Spielberg, is one of the year's most acclaimed films with 7 Oscar nominations. And its climax, an encounter with one of history's most famous Mainers. Well, John, they're telling me that regardless of who anybody is voting for, just the fact that the people are coming to the polls today shows the resilience of this city. Of course, nearly 2 weeks since that mass shooting, and everybody's been doing a little bit of something here on this Act of Kindness Day. Some are giving services, others are giving money, and some just acknowledge that they're there for them and that they're not alone, all in an effort to give back to a hurting community. John, it almost feels like Groundhog Day, us being up here. No Sonny and Cher, of course, but the people are waking up here just about every day to more flood and road damage. You know, Roger, you being here on a Sunday is supposed to put us all in a good mood. What gives?
Well, you know, if it was sunny and beautiful, I wouldn't be here, but no, it doesn't always work that way.
Good morning, Nora, or should I say howdy to you and everybody else. Good evening, Kathleen, and everybody's been doing a little bit of something here on this Act of Kindness Day. Some are giving services, others are giving money, and some just acknowledge that they're there for them and that they're not alone, all in an effort to give back to a hurting community.
We step up for each other. This is an amazing community.
Okay, absolutely.
Billy Joe Brito stepped up for that community as the co-owner of Blaze Flower and Garden Center in Lewiston, offering to donate floral arrangements to the funerals of all 18 victims of last week's mass shooting.
This is what we do. I mean, I think every day is an act of kindness day when you see someone that needs something.
It's a gesture that's become more and more common since the shooting, as today has been declared Act of Kindness Day by the city of Lewiston, with each individual or business giving back in their own way. VIP Tires and Service is giving back by donating $10 to the victims' funds for each tire sold in Lewiston and Auburn through November 12th, a gesture that's personal for the locally owned chain.
So many of our the people who work here, our support center is headquartered in Auburn. So we are all very, very close to this. And the day that it happened, we were thinking, how do we help the people, our community, our customers, and also our employees to be able to get through this.
Charlie, is this all done?
Others are giving back by simply being there for each other, like the staff at Simone's hot dog stand in Lewiston, who are helping the community heal one hug at a time.
Everybody's in together, and we all just want to share some love with each other. Just try to be like one big happy family. We're in Lewiston, we're strong, and we just have to prove it to them.
And these gestures are all making a difference. VIP says it expects to raise more than $6,000 from those tire sales. And even if you just drive around Lewiston today like we did, you can see the signs, you can see all of the support, all in an effort to show that no one here is alone. Live in Lewiston, I'm James Corrigan with Maine's Total Coverage. John, you just alluded to people here in Maine having a very long night. Well, nowhere are people going to have a longer night than right here at Central Maine Medical Center. Also saw the governor take some blunt questions on law enforcement's response and how they could have potentially prevented this shooting from happening. This is in response to reports that the gunman had made threats against the National Guard base in Saco. It certainly was a sigh of relief seeing last night's news, but now comes the hard part, and that hard part is to heal. There's no feeling like when a boy climbs his first bike.
Yeah, look, you could.
Especially one he can talk to.
Cranking, 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 cranking. Like it, go back in the puddle.
3-year-old Will Fuller Wright of Rockland knows that feeling well, after his parents bought him his very first bike, one a bit more super than most. Why is Spider-Man your favorite superhero?
Because he saves Buddy by catching bad guys in the net.
But last week, on Will's first day out with the bike, there was one bad guy Spider-Man couldn't avoid.
My bike got stolen there.
We went to Walgreens and we stopped and put his bike on the sidewalk and went inside to get him a little candy treat as a woohoo, you made it half a mile. We came out and the bike wasn't there. And I walked up and down the length of the sidewalk thinking, because there's those big cement columns, so I thought maybe I just couldn't see it. But It wasn't there.
Security footage showed that someone did see it and took it, along with Will's mother, Liz Fuller Wright's faith in her fellow neighbor.
It was a mix of emotions. I mean, sad, disappointed, angry at the state of humanity. He's 3 years old. This is his first bike. And you don't want to think that anybody would do that.
Rockland police posted a surveillance video of the thief on Facebook to try and find the stolen bike. But what they found instead was something priceless.
I happened to put Facebook on and I saw that story about the little boy who had his bike stolen.
The woman you're hearing from is homeless and wishes to remain anonymous. She's based out of her car, which is where she was at an Oxford County gas station when she saw the news and decided to act.
What this little boy was thinking when he came out of that store with his mom and saw his bike missing, I cried. I worry about what that little boy would be growing up and thinking about the world. I went to Walmart and I purchased the one and only bike, got him the helmet, the lock, and then I took it to Rockland.
She spent what little money she had on the identical bike and dropped it off at the Rockland police station. The department's subsequent Facebook post received an overwhelming reaction, with the Mid-Coast Recovery Coalition now accepting donations for her as a means of thanks. But for Will and Liz, no amount of thanks would be enough.
I was able to give her a call, and we spoke for a few minutes. And she told me her story, and I couldn't believe it. She's not someone flush with cash, but she gave so much, so generously to a little boy she'd never met, never known, because she wanted him to be happy. She didn't want him to think that there were bad guys in the world. She wanted him to have faith in humanity.
If you were to meet this boy, what would you say?
I think I would probably just cry, to see the happy joyness in his face. And I'd probably let him know that no matter what happens in life, we go through our troubles, our ups and downs, but there's always somebody out there that's watching over us. He's never alone.
And so for Will, his first bike is now his second. And the superhero whose name it bears is also second to the real hero who showed a little boy that superheroes do exist. In Rockland, I'm James Corrigan with Maine's Total Coverage. As Mainers continue to struggle with affordable housing, Governor Mills says her administration will continue to be aggressive in fighting a problem that she says has affected everybody.
My heart goes out to anyone who has been evicted without cause or foreclosed on because of financial hardship, and people who cannot find housing.
Governor Mills says the long-term effects of her administration's actions on housing will help Mainers struggling with it. It's headlined by last year's zoning reform bill, which requires all municipalities to amend their zoning laws to allow multi-unit dwellings on any lot previously zoned for single-family units.
And you see cities like Auburn who are using that in their own way and encouraging people to build accessory dwelling units, or what I used to call in-law apartments, really, to accommodate people without creating sprawl. I think that's a very creative one of the parts of the solution.
But not every city and town has been receptive, as the deadline to comply with the new zoning laws was moved to next year after a backlash. The city of Lewiston has also rejected 2 projects to build a shelter and transitional housing, which would have used a $3.7 million grant for that purpose from January's emergency heating bill. Governor Mills says the state is working with cities and towns to meet their needs while doing their part to find a solution.
We're working with towns through their housing departments, housing agencies such as in Lewiston, to try to be creative to address their particular needs in the way that they choose. It is an all-hands-on-deck problem, requires an all-hands-on-deck solution.
For the next session, Governor Mills says she'll work with the legislature's Select Committee on Housing to find short-term solutions for the coming winter. In the long term, while the governor says solutions will not be easy, she believes they'll eventually bear fruit.
Ultimately, we want to find permanent, affordable, comfortable housing for all who need it, all who want it in the state of Maine. It's going to take long-term planning, and we are engaged in long-term planning.
Well, Well, they're reacting as best they can, Megan. Many of them haven't been able to drive out of this road over the last 2 days. Look behind me here. That's part of Dowdy Road as the dump truck is about to obstruct it. That part of Dowdy Road over there was washed out in the thunderstorm back on Saturday, but another part of the road washed out all the way back in April and is yet to be repaired. That means that residents here have had to take some unusual methods to get supplies. When you can't leave your home, creativity becomes a necessity.
She's trapped with her son, and I'm trapped at the house in Brunswick with her other 3 children.
Carrie Rowe's daughter, Melissa, is stuck without 3 of her 4 children after both ends of Dowdy Road in Bowdoin washed out. The first in April near Route 201, which has gone unfixed, and the second near Meadow Road during Saturday's thunderstorm.
Very frustrating. Worried about them if they need anything and throwing things over the gully and crawling in through there. I'm sure other families have done that as well.
It's been a big headache for a lot of towns that didn't all realize they owned these culverts completely.
Bowdoin Selectman Brad Totten says the town's cleanup work began right away for a temporary fix, but a permanent solution could take a lot longer.
The budget to change those 2 culverts exceeds our total road budget for almost 2 years.
A temporary road is expected to open by tonight in the newly formed washout by Meadow Road. But for now, the gap between Dowdy Road residents and the rest of the town feels like a canyon.
Well, they miss their mother, and the middle one misses his grandmother, and he just came from Maine Medical Center ICU this weekend, so if he has to go back, then it'll be difficult to get him back to the hospital.
Now the hope is for a permanent structure to be built on the other washout by Route 201 by the wintertime, but that could be a tall task. A temporary culvert and a temporary bridge would both have to be built and then replaced for that to happen. But in the meantime, the residents here on Dowdy Road should be able to drive away by tonight. Live in Bowdoin, I'm James Corrigan with Maine's Total Coverage.
Down, up, down, up, down.
Strength can be measured in a number of ways, through how much weight you can carry physically and emotionally.
Can you say hi? You do it.
The weight of lifting a car is nothing to 8-year-old Jackson Smith, who suffers from a peroxisomal disorder, a genetic disease which causes the gradual shutdown of his organs.
Vision loss, hearing loss, kidney and liver issues. He has 18 doctors and specialists, so he keeps me pretty busy, huh?
Jackson was given a year to live at 3 months old, but his defiance of the odds hasn't lowered his family's need for assistance.
Once this situation came to our attention, I guess, the families, we thought, what can we do?
What Scott Bauman did as the owner of Iron Legion Strength Company in Westbrook was set up the Battle in the Brook at the Westbrook Community Center, which saw numerous other gyms compete in various strength events and activities to raise money for Jackson, along with another family he could give a lift to through lifting.
It has been a really intense few months.
Kate Bathurst and her husband Tim are both members at Iron Legion, and they've had to show an iron will since last fall, when Tim was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
This financial support in particular is really helpful because we have so many increased expenses right now.
Scott hopes to raise between $5,000 and $10,000, which for Kate and Sheena would go a long way towards providing their families both comfort and security.
Giving him the best quality of life that we can, and this will really help us to be able to achieve that.
Fighting through the pain to experience the gain of love and family. In Westbrook, I'm James Corrigan with Maine's Total Coverage. The future can be hard to predict, especially for those who have most of theirs ahead of them. But for a group of students gathered at the University of Maine in Orono, it might be a bit less blurry. For 28 years, one student from every Maine public high school has received a $10,000 college scholarship from the Mitchell Institute. And for its namesake, former Senator George Mitchell, the future of his Mitchell scholars can be found in his own life, which as of today has spanned 90 years.
I see in their eyes and in their voice and the manner reminders of myself at that time. I was 16 when I graduated from Waterville High School. Didn't have any prospects for going to college. I was very lucky that several people helped me along the way, and I'm reminded that people need an opportunity.
Mitchell made the most of his opportunities after growing up in the hard-scrabble Waterville neighborhood, known at the time as Head of Falls.
My parents never owned a car. They worked very hard. They lacked education, and they lived their entire lives on the edge of financial failure. But they had a dream, and the dream was that their children in America would have the chance to get an education and to improve their lives.
That dream would carry Mitchell from Bowdoin College to the military to Georgetown Law to working for Senator Edmund Muskie in Washington and on his campaigns. He would serve as state Democratic Party chair and run for governor in 1974 in a losing effort. 6 years later, he would be appointed to the U.S. Senate after a stint as U.S. Attorney and a federal judge. But it was in 1988, when he became Senate Majority Leader, that Senator Mitchell cultivated his bipartisan reputation.
On the day that I was elected Senate Majority Leader, I called Bob Dole, who was the Republican leader in the Senate. So I said, I've come to tell you how I intend to behave toward you, and I set out the most basic elements of fairness and decency, and I could see he was delighted. We didn't insult each other, we didn't demean each other, we didn't attack each other's person and personal history, and so it's possible to conduct politics in that way.
With all the polarization, all the rancor today, do you think that kind of a cooperation is still possible?
I don't have a magic formula for ending the rancor and hostility in American politics. I do have a belief, maybe it's a dream, that we go through cycles in our history, and this is not a permanent condition.
Mitchell's bipartisan work included the landmark Clean Air Act of 1990 and that year's tax compromise with President George H.W. Bush. But it was after Mitchell left the Senate in 1994 where he truly made his mark on the world. As the U.S. Special Envoy to Northern Ireland, Mitchell helped broker the Good Friday Agreement between its Catholic Republicans and Protestant Unionists, which ended the decades-long sectarian conflict known as the Troubles and ushered in a peace which continues to this day. But Mitchell says his proudest accomplishment was creating the Institute in 1995. Giving opportunities to students from all four corners of Maine, all representing the camaraderie and culture he says motivated him to serve.
Those of us who've had the tremendous opportunity to live in Maine understand that the way to get ahead is not to push someone else down. The way to get ahead is to push yourself up. It's been the greatest honor of my life to represent the people of Maine in the Senate.
His appearances before the people, however, have become sparse since his diagnosis of leukemia in 2020. Chemotherapy may have limited him, but it has not limited his commitment to the Institute, which has given over $24 million to more than 3,600 students since its creation. With 90 years now in George Mitchell's rearview mirror, the future of his legacy lives and breathes in the young people of Maine who possess the grit and desire of a kid from Waterville who changed the world. All the students here today, all the people that are here today, all of the Maine people that you've served and that you've met over the years, how would you like them to remember George Mitchell?
I tried my best to represent the people of Maine fairly and responsibly. And after leaving the Senate, I'm trying my best to see to it that every child in Maine has the same chance in life that I had.